Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're going to connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible woman that we are. We'll nurture ourselves so that we can pour into those who can count on us. We'll also hear from other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Let's roll. We're having a mom moment. Welcome, friends. I'm so glad you could join us for this week's episode, and I'm so excited to have my dear, sweet friend Mary on today. Mary and I met in what I would call a God moment 10 years ago. It was one of those times where you look back and see that there were definitely larger forces at play. We'll talk more about that story in just a minute, but since then, Mary has been my sister in all things pregnancy, postpartum, and working motherhood. We got to walk through our first pregnancies together, and our girls were born 3 weeks apart, which has been so fun. Hey, Mary, I know you're a busy woman, so I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me today.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. This is so fun because we've known each other for almost 10 years now. So it's fun to see how it's kind of evolved.
Feels like yesterday.
I know. So I want to talk a little bit about how we met because I think it's interesting because Ryan and I were looking for a house to move into after our wedding. And we kept looking at all these townhouse style condos. And as you know, there were like several communities like that all around that area. So a lot of the things that we had looked at were like identical floor plans from one to the next, like, Do you want this one with granite or do you want this one with, maybe an updated bathroom? But it was all very, very similar and just trying to choose like the best option based on location or finishes. And somehow, I'm not sure why, but we chose that unit owned by a smoker with lilac walls and countertops. But we did. And the first day that we went over there, we first met your husband, James, and he was super nice. But Brian and I were like, oh, he was cool. Like, I wonder what his story is without trying to be too creepy. And then the next night you came over, I was in the garage painting cabinets and you just popped a squat and started painting with me.
Yeah. I remember it so well. I remember James telling me that y'all had moved in and we felt like it was just college all over again. We felt like we got to live next door to our best friends. And he was telling me like a new young couple moved in next door. And I was like, what? We have to be friends with them. What are they like? And asking him a million questions. And I am naturally like a really shy person. Like I'm just, more introverted than he is. He can talk to anybody. And we often say that like James and Shannon are the same person and Ryan and I are the same person. But yeah, I just was like, we got to go meet him. And he was like, well, I already did. And I was like, well, I'm going over. And yeah, the rest is history.
It's so funny. I'm glad you did though. And I agree. James and I are similar in a lot of ways and same thing with you and Ryan. But like when it comes to meeting people, I'm like, it's uncomfortable and I don't want to, and like having to do it all over again since we moved up here. But, just having to be like, all right, got to do this.
Yeah.
Got to meet some people. So yeah. And you came over and started painting, which was awesome because painting cabinets is a beast. So
yes.
Yeah. So condo living is interesting, but yeah, what Mary said was so true. It was like being in college. It was like being adult, like an adult college, because you didn't have like an RA, telling you to quiet down. And we lived in a building. There was 3 units. Mary and James are on one end. We were in the middle, which we always joked about, like cutting a hole in the wall and just putting like a door in between so we could just go back and forth because we were back and forth all the time anyway. And then there was this amazing woman on the other side who was a single mom who had her kids, like 50-50. And we were always worried that we were going to be too loud. And the only thing she would ever say was like, you guys partying this weekend? And we're like, oh, sorry. And she was like, no, I'm going to choose a weekend when my kids aren't here so I can come over. We were really lucky. With that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We were, for sure.
Yeah. So that's why I think it was kind of a God moment because we could have ended up in any of these little units all over town. And I think if we had like picked one, there was even several units for sale in that complex at the time. If we had picked one on the other side, we may have never met. So
right. It totally was.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun together. We had lots of shenanigans, lots of drinking, lots of late nights. But it was good. It was good. And then we can fast forward a little bit to 2016. I was just remembering how you had texted me one day and you're like, do you want to go out later? And I was like, oh, I really shouldn't. I came home from work sick today, so I'm gonna have to lay low, but maybe tomorrow. And you immediately clapped back, are you pregnant? And I was like, uh-oh. And then come to find out we've been hiding our pregnancies from each other. We were both pretty early, right? I think it was like 8 or 9 weeks or something, but
yeah, maybe not even that.
yeah.
And we had decided to go floating down the river.
Yes.
So we were going on like a floating trip. I can't remember. Maybe it was summer, Father's Day. I don't know. It was something, but
no, it was sometime after 4th of July, because I remember I got real stupid on 4th of July before I knew I was pregnant. Yeah.
Yes, we both were. We both were. That was James' birthday. Yeah, that was crazy. But anyway, I remember telling James, like, I don't know if I should get in that water. Can I be in a river while I'm pregnant? Like, I don't know. You know, just things that you don't really think of. Like, everything is new to you. And I remember I had like I was pretending like I was drinking a hard lemonade or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but maybe it was just lemonade, or it was just something like water. And like that whole day, you and I both knew, and we never said anything. It's, you know, like I think of that, and maybe we can get into this a little bit more, but that first time pregnancy, we were both so scared to say anything. And like, I really could have used you in those first 8 weeks, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I remember, I'd forgotten that until you brought it up, but I remember because I was doing the same thing. I was like, Ryan, I can't not show up looking like I'm drinking. So I'll do like a mixed drink in a plastic container instead of like a can of beer or something. So maybe they won't catch on. And I was like, oh, this is blueberry vodka lemonade. You know, it's the blueberry is so good you can't even tell it's vodka. Like, Mary, do you want to taste? And you were like, no, I don't drink vodka. And I was like, bullshit. What is going on here? Like, Mary doesn't drink vodka all of a sudden? Okay. So funny. Yeah. It was such a weird day too, because we were both like,
right. Yeah.
I agree with you though. I agree. Yeah. I don't know if it's the like, oh, you shouldn't tell anybody till 12 weeks, or if we were just uneasy and afraid. I don't know. We can talk about it more. I think it's important.
Yeah. And I think too, it may have had something to do a little bit like James and I had tried for a long time to have Latin, our first. And, you know, it was partly just timing issues with me and understanding science, but, you know, and then you guys got pregnant so quickly. So I don't know if it was like uneasy to like tell each other or what was happening, but I think looking back, we'd both probably agree, like, I would have been 100% happy for you, even if I wasn't pregnant at the time. But, you know, it's just those, you know, things that you're navigating as a new mom, and, you know, they've been trying for a while. It was so easy for us. And it just goes to show you that everyone is so different. Every pregnancy is so different. But just having that support and that girl gang beside you.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I will say I was nervous about telling you because I knew you guys had been trying, and it happened so quick for us, which I know we're super fortunate. I know so many women, that's not the story for them, but yeah, that was a lot of it. And knowing you, you're like one of the sweetest humans I've ever met, and you're always a cheerleader for everybody. And I knew I would be met with nothing but love, but I was still uneasy because it is such a sensitive topic. But yeah, I think, and I will say through all of this as well, like me kind of coming out with my my passion project that I've been hiding, like everyone has just been so supportive. So I think we can all take a lesson in that, you have a group of people around you who just want to cheer you on, in whatever it is, pregnancy or whatever. Like they're rooting for you, and your real friends are there and ready to receive whatever you have to share.
Exactly.
Yeah. And those first few weeks can be so rough. Even that first trimester, can be so tough.
Yeah, because your whole life has changed, and then you feel like you're just hiding this big secret. So that is something I definitely did differently the second time around, because I wanted those closest to me to know, and if heaven forbid something had happened, I wasn't going to be hiding this or putting this whole burden on just me and James.
Yes. At the time, I feel like in 2017, there was a lot of like, you should probably wait until 12 weeks to tell people, because if you're going to miscarry, you're most likely to do it in the first 12 weeks, and then you don't have to go through all of that. But it's like, I don't think that they're telling that story anymore. I didn't get that this time around at all. But I appreciated, I had this sweet, sweet, sweet nurse practitioner that I used to see, and she has since passed, which was so sad. She was lovely.
Maybe not quite a year, but when you're month to month and getting that disappointment every single month, it just feels like an eternity. But yes, I was working in a very demanding job. James had taken a job with a company and actually moved to Vermont for months on end. And so
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was by myself. I remember we had a tree come through the roof, and I was calling Ryan to come into my attic to look at this tree because I was by myself. So that was another huge, huge pro to having really good friends next door. During that time, because I was solo, but during that, I felt like, I didn't have kids at the time. I was in a demanding job. My husband was gone for work. So, I just threw myself into my job and was working crazy hours, working all day, going to events at night for that job. So it was just a lot of stress. And I don't think I realized it at the time. But anyway, I ended up transitioning to a new position. And I think it's so crazy how you forget all of the details, but I remember I didn't know I was pregnant like the day I started my new job, but I already was. And so I found out shortly after that I started there that I was pregnant. I was so happy, so excited. But then I was in this realm of, oh my gosh, what do I do? I haven't been here long enough to take FMLA. Are they going to support me with any type of leave? Am I going to have to take all of this unpaid? Like, am I going to lose my new job that I just got? There's so many questions. And it's something in this country that we have to worry about, and we have to factor that in, which is crazy to think about. But thankfully, I started this new job. I worked for like 12 weeks knowing that I was pregnant. Like, how am I going to have this conversation with them? I remember traveling for that job with my new boss and like having to hide everything, like all of the things. Anyway, I ended up walking into our HR director's office and telling her, like, I'm so sorry. We had been trying, like it was something that was on our hearts to do, but I hadn't, realized starting a new job that I'd be coming in pregnant. And so I just shared with her all of my concerns. I opened up completely, and thankfully they were able to do like a protected leave for me, not under FMLA, but my job was still protected, and I was able to get short-term disability, which we can talk more about. But so thankfully the situation did work out, but it was so stressful in those first couple of months because, you're trying to navigate all the things and you don't really know how it's going to be perceived or how you're going to be able to take that time to take care of your baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot I want to unpack here. We absolutely have to come back to the leave and the short-term disability because it is a whole thing. And it's interesting. One, I think how you shared that you went in and apologized.
Mm-hmm.
Your response was to go in and apologize. Like, okay, that speaks volumes. I mean, you're just so sweet and so accommodating, and your nature is so kind, but still, I don't think anyone should feel like they have to apologize for planning a family or having a family. It's just wild to me. Yeah, so let's go into that in a minute. But do you think there is something to be said about trusting the timing of your life, like the way the timing worked out with Lawton, and how you had wanted a baby sooner, but
Mm-hmm.
can you see the beauty in the way that it worked out instead?
Yes, absolutely. And so much of it is our bodies too, like leaving that old job and having a new job. I mean, having a new job is still stressful. You're learning new things and everything, but I just didn't feel the pressure as much as I did with my old job. And I think that timing just allowed me to kind of open up, free myself. You hear of all kinds of stories of people trying and then they end up adopting and then getting pregnant right after. I think it's psychological too. And, the timing of it all is perfect. I look at her now and I could not imagine any other time in our life to have had her. Like we got married in 2011. So we had her in 2017. So we waited, a long time before we started trying, but it was also a perfect time in our marriage. I felt like we really knew each other to be able, to have her and where she is today and all of those things. But the timing of everything, I could not have imagined anything better.
Yeah. And then selfishly, I will say our due dates originally were 10 days apart.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel so lucky that we were so close walking this together. Emerson came a day early and then Lawton decided she wanted to hang out for a while. So the birth dates ended up being 3 weeks apart, but like that has been a gift in itself, being so close and going through all the things, right at the same time it's been amazing. It's just even like being able to text you like, this is happening.
Right.
Oh my gosh, what's my body doing? Yeah.
I know. And our birth stories could not have been more opposite.
Agreed.
For our first or probably our seconds, but yes, just having that, like for me, I remember showing up at the hospital. I don't even know if you wanted me there, but I was not missing it.
Oh.
And so we walk in after Emerson is born and show up and I'm like, okay, Shannon did this. I can do this. Like you go through these things. Oh, and oh my gosh, something we haven't talked about is our birthing class. We probably
we have to talk about the birthing class. Yes.
But just having that support and knowing, okay, she just did this. She got a baby out of her body somehow. And she is alive and well and doing well. Like, I can do this. I can do this. And so it just gave me that courage, I guess, knowing that, one of my very best friends was just able to do this. Like, I can do it too. So
I think what was funny was I think we flip-flop. I think for the longest time I was like, oh my gosh, this baby is in me and it's going to have to be on the outside of me. And I'm not looking forward to that. And when I was kind of like, I set that down and I was like, all right, it's just going to be what it is. Like millions of women do this all the time. It's going to be fine. And then you kind of started to dip into that, like, oh gosh, this baby's getting bigger. It's just going to be a whole thing. And I'm getting worried. So our stories were very, very different, but I'm glad there's something in that for you. And I'm so glad you guys came to the hospital. It was so sweet. I mean, especially being in North Carolina, being from Michigan, my mom was there, but like she came and then my mother-in-law, I think came later that day or the next day, but then like my dad was in Michigan. So like you guys were our built-in family. So it was Yeah, I appreciate that. I think you guys showed up with champagne or wine or
I
something.
did.
So nice. Yeah, it was super nice. Yeah.
And then like after having Lawton, I was like, why did I do that? The thought of it was great, but I was not in a place to have that after.
No, the gesture was so sweet though. So sweet. Okay. I know we said we'll come back to the short-term disability, but since we're on the birth topic, we have to talk about the birthing class. Now, I was very much like, I will read the books, I will do the things, whatever I need to do is fine. I wasn't sure about a birthing class. And then one day you were like, there's this birthing class. I think we should go. I'm going to sign up. Do you want to go? And this was like a fully immersive experience. Like this was like, what was it, 6 weeks? Like this was a thing.
Yeah, maybe 9 weeks.
Oh,
It was
so
long.
It was long. It was so long. So Mary Frances class, I think, didn't you, who went through it? You knew about it from somebody.
Yes, it was definitely a referral. And we were in Asheville, mind you. And so, it was very, I don't know if I'm saying the right things.
It's very, very hippy dippy, but
yeah.
No judgment.
Right. So it was like all about empowering you to have a natural childbirth. And I was trying to have that way. It did not turn out that way for me. And I'm here to support you in any way that you want to have a baby. But I knew with my second one going in, I wanted the drugs immediately. Shannon accidentally, second time around went that way. But for this birthing class, it was everything to empower you to have a baby naturally. And, the support system that you have to get through that. And in my mind, I was all for it. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah, a couple of like sound bites I remember are like, welcome your babies. Like you'd all sit down on the floor together on pillows and you'd have to like rub your bellies and be like, hi baby, like to start the class. And I just remember what was her name? Kama. Shout out to Kama. The basement. You remember her talking about the basement? Yeah. Talking about your pelvic floor and all the work that you need it to do. So for me, I was very much like, I know I am not really on the natural birth train, but like, I think these tips will be helpful. Maybe I didn't listen like I should have. I remember it was like the second to last week. And she was like, if you have any questions that haven't been answered and you don't want to raise your hand, because it was a pretty small class, maybe like a dozen couples. It may not have been that big. Write a note and drop it in the box and we'll address it next week. And so I wrote in my little question was like, when are we going to talk about epidurals? Pulling that out and being like, when are we going to talk about epidurals? My mamas don't usually get epidurals unless they're having like a marathon labor. If they're facing like hour 22, 24, because I think she was a doula as well. She was like, then we start to talk about epidural because mama is just exhausted after like a 24-hour marathon labor. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. And that's how my first one turned out. I was in hour 22 when I was begging for the epidural.
Yeah. See, I had the misconception that like I would be able to get to the hospital and have the epidural without having to experience a whole lot of pain. But Emerson was so eager to get here that she was pushing so hard against my cervix. This may be TMI, but when I got to the hospital and got checked, they thought my water had already broken because her head was pushing so hard that it had like spread the water away from the cervix. But I suffered at home so bad. It was awful. And I was like, get the binder. Where are the tips? Right?
Get the binder.
That was a whole thing.
So moral of the story, we got some great tips. We did it together. But I think if you are in the stages of about to go through maternity leave or having a baby, just trust your body, trust your instincts, do what you want to do. There's no right or wrong way to have a baby. And you are such a badass just to be able to get that baby out of you.
Yes.
Like
Anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Epidural or not, C-section or otherwise, whatever. It's amazing. Yeah,
right.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. So that was an experience. If you want to take a birthing class, I know they do a lot of things online now. Like that would definitely probably be my go-to, so that if I heard something, I wouldn't have to like hide my face and like, oh, what the? I feel like my face half that class was like, what? What is she actually saying right now? But again, shout out to Kama. Kama, if you're listening, you are a rock star. Like, keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Can we circle back to kind of like working motherhood, maternity leave? You talked a little bit about short-term disability and how, as far as like expecting, like you kind of had the worst timing work-wise. I mean, it worked out for you, but I know a lot of women are, if they're thinking about leaving a job, but then they get pregnant, then they feel trapped where they are. They feel like they can't leave because they will lose their leave. I think it's fair to say a lot of it is case by case. Every company is going to do what they're going to do. So you did not take FMLA, but they protected your position and you were able to take short-term disability pay.
Yes. So again, every company is different. And side note, I work in HR, so
Yes.
I deal with this a lot. I'm on a recruiting side, but I still see how it affects people pretty regularly. So every company is a little bit different, and you can look at all of the roles for FMLA and things like that, but typically there's a certain number of hours that you have to meet to qualify for FMLA or be with a company for 12 months, that type of thing. So thankfully this company honored it and just did like a personal leave of absence for me and protected my job, which I was so thankful for. But in preparing for that, we have a lot of family that lives in Canada. And so, in talking with cousins and things like that were getting pregnant, like there's so many more benefits and time off and things like that. So I just had, in looking at it, I'll be honest, like I tried to plan as much as I could, but I didn't really have anyone directing me, like, look here or see this or, those types of things. So I just was like, okay, I knew personally, I wanted to take the full 12 weeks. One thing that I've done with both of my pregnancies and leaves is, I mentioned I apologized that first time walking in the office, but I did not apologize for wanting to take time with my baby.
Good.
So I knew that I wanted to take the full 12 weeks. Short-term disability for me, I think, was paid at 60% for 6 weeks, and there was a waiting period. So I think all in, I got 60% of 5 weeks that first time around. And so thankfully my husband was employed. We could cut our budget, and that was just important. That was something we decided was important to us, and I was just going to take that time. And truthfully, we had a different birth story. We got hit. Our daughter ended up being in the NICU. We got hit with a very expensive NICU bill. There's a lot to that. And, at one point it was like, should I go back to work sooner? But really in my heart of hearts, like I just did not want to. And to this day, I'm so thankful that I did not negotiate on that. And I used that time to be with my baby. And honestly, like planning for it, it was kind of like, okay, let's see when the first check arrives. Let's see how much money this is actually going to be, because there's so many different factors to it. And then I remember I had to, my health insurance was being taken out of my paycheck. And so when I wasn't getting a paycheck, I had to mail in a check for like my part of benefits and things like that. So there's things like that to think about too, which I didn't that first time around. So I felt like a lot of my maternity leave was like, okay, waiting for this check to show up. Okay, how much was that? And what do I still owe? And where is this bill coming from this hospital? And this is coming from this doctor. And even the second time around, I felt like I was on the phone with a doctor's office or a medical billing facility or somebody, like multiple times a week just trying to figure that out. So
Mhm.
I jokingly said with James, like, they give you maternity leave because you have to have all of this time to try to figure out who you're supposed to
Yep.
pay.
Right, right. While I'm not getting paid, figuring out who I am going to pay.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Thank you for sharing that. Every company handles things differently. I will say, as someone who only took 6 weeks the first time, because I was afraid of like the financial aspect of it, do not
Hmm.
recommend. If you can take more time, absolutely take more time. There are so many more developed countries in this world that allow their mamas to have way longer than 12 weeks. And once you have taken your first maternity leave, you understand why. Because even 12 weeks does not feel like enough. I can say that wholeheartedly from taking 6 the first time to 12 the second time. It doesn't feel like enough. And also, not to confuse, because this has come up for me recently, a realization that don't confuse like boredom for like wanting to go back to work, because a lot of us are career oriented women, and we're used to doing a lot of things in the day and talking to people, and then all of a sudden you're at home and you're on somebody else's schedule who makes up the schedule as they go, and they can't talk back to you. All they do is scream at you when they need something. So that in
Right.
itself, there can be a boredom piece there, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily craving going back to work. So if you are having those feelings, I would just encourage you to kind of work through those and see like what is it that you're actually missing. It
Mhm.
may be the work, but guess what? The work will still be there for you when you get back. um,
Right.
take the
And I
time.
think it's just having like grace with yourself too. Like Sundays, I stayed in my bed all day and watched Netflix with my baby. The end. Like,
Yep.
you
I love
know,
it. The end.
some days my success for the day was unloading the dishwasher. I like took the little wins. With Lawton, I remember thinking, okay, every day I'm going to have one goal or one place to go, even if it was like Target to get more diapers or
Mhm.
whatever. Every day I'm going to have one place to go. With Graham, I did not, and it was a total like mind shift for me. And I like took the wins when I could, and the
Mhm.
days that I stayed in my bed and watched Netflix all day, just it was what it was.
But honoring your needs is a win in itself.
Yeah.
And I think as like high achieving career oriented women, finding a win and just resting is hard.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
hard for sure. So,
And to not think like I'm on vacation,
oh no, no,
like you definitely were not on vacation.
no, no. Your body is like, this is anything but a vacation. Did you
Mhm.
see what we just went through here? Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah. I sleep a lot more on vacation than on
Yes.
maternity leave. Yeah. So, in being a career woman, what are some of the challenges that are most prevalent, do you think, in this space of trying to juggle all the things? And I will say it was one thing to have one child and to walk through all of that. And then you have another one, and it's like, oh, this is the big leagues trying to juggle all the things now.
Right. Yeah. So, wow, there's so much to that question. And um, right now, I both of us work full time. We have two kids. We run an apple orchard on the side,
Hmm.
and um, so my husband is usually doing something outside, like every day after work, and so um, thankfully, we've just had to kind of create those rhythms of who does what. And a lot of times, like he'll help me do dinner and bath, and then I'll get the kids down and he'll go do whatever that needs to be done in the orchard. And so it's a lot of navigating. One thing that I will say has been different this time around is remembering, our kids are in school and daycare, and so remembering all the sicknesses and all of the
Hmm.
days off and
Hmm.
everything that comes with that throws a wrench in your day. Like I will have like a full day of meetings planned, and I can be as planful as possible and have my whole week planned out. And you get that one call from daycare that,
Mm,
oh, they have a fever, or, whatever it is that day. And you're just having to reroute everything. Thankfully, we have lots of family nearby. But again, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to expose my mom to this again, or, like sometimes you feel like you don't want to get grandparents sick, and you need to be the one to take care of them. And you want to be the one to take care of them too. So, I think it's just, again, giving yourself grace. I am a very organized person. I like to plan for everything. I don't like surprises. And I'm that way in my work too. And so I'm very, I hate scheduling meetings and then having to cancel them. And, for me, that is hard because I see that as unprofessional, but I also know that my family comes first, and, I'm always going to be a good employee, but, when my kids need me, my kids need me. And so being okay with saying that and changing plans. And I think that's been the hardest part for me this go round, is the navigating of it all, and just being kind to myself, and not letting all of that pressure get to me each and every day.
Yes, so important, so well put, because you can have all the plans in the world and contingency plans, and if the stars don't align just right, it can all fall apart so quickly. So yeah, being kind to yourself is huge. And I think that's a muscle that you build over time, especially when you're used to juggling all the things and keeping all the plates spinning. But all it takes is one call from daycare, and you see it come up on the caller ID, and you're like, here we go.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that's so important. So I know you said you get a rhythm. Mary just, glazed over the fact that on top of working full time, her and her husband have an apple orchard that they live on. But in the last few years of you guys owning this orchard, I've learned just how needy apples are. So let's not sweep it under the rug that you guys just wake up and there's apples on the tree. How are you doing all the things?
So we don't do all the things, unfortunately. But one thing that James and I were just talking about the other night was how we want to be perceived to our children. So, we want to show them a work ethic of being able to follow our passions, follow our dreams, put in work to things that, of course, matter in this world, but how we show up for ourselves every single day. And so we were talking about it's a culture in my company, to work every single night. And honestly, if it's I prioritize my time, I manage things, I try to be as refined processes and be as effective as I can be while I'm working, so that I can show up for my family when it's time to show up for my family, so that I can put time into our business when it's time to put into our business. I want my kids, for us, this orchard, we hope continues into our family, and we show them that we're building something for them. So I know I'm getting kind of off on a tangent, but I think it's just prioritizing, what we want them to see us as, and how we put our time into that. So, for example, at 5:30, we're eating dinner. Baby gets real mad if he doesn't get dinner right away. So we're shutting everything off. We're having dinner. We're doing story time and bedtime. And, if we have things to do outside, we'll do that right then, with it being lighter later and things like that. But if I'm going to give my time to a company later, I'm going to do that after my kids go to bed, or I'm going to do that after, I've dedicated my time to seeing what the orchard needs. And obviously it's different seasons. Some seasons are stronger than others that require more of our time. But, I think it's just reflecting and prioritizing and taking a look at, what you want from your life. Yes. Do you want to be known as that really great employee that always works every single night? Or do you want to be known as a good employee that really cares about what she does and what her team does, but also has other passions and other priorities in her life?
Yes. This is so good. This is so good. There's so many things I want to touch on. One, I love that you talk about what you want your children to get out of what you're doing. I think that's huge. I think a lot of us grew up with parents, I'm making a generalization here, but my dad especially was a boomer. His dad was in the war. He grew up on a farm, really poor, came up to Detroit, worked in the steel mill, was very much like work ethic. You get a job, you go to the job, you do the job well, you work, you show up as your best self all the time. Yeah. Because that's a lot of what survival was then, but success can look, a lot different. There's so many different ways, and it doesn't have to be that 9 to 5, it could be, I know you guys are juggling both the things. You've got 2 jobs plus, the 2 of you, your 2 jobs plus the orchard, but just, redefining what success can look like for our kids, I think is huge. Being mindful about what you're showing them is huge. And really talking like deliberately about what is it that we want them to get out of this. It's something that I'm struggling with right now because I am unemployed since my layoff, and Emerson has been like, you don't have a job. And I know she's just stating facts, but it hurts, so I'm trying to show her that, I am looking for another job, but while I'm doing that, I'm also working on something else that I think could help people. And that's also a good use of my time.
Right. Exactly. And they put it in perspective for us sometimes, like mine comes home from school on the bus, and she's a little bit older, so she can entertain herself for the rest of the afternoon while I finish working. But, sometimes she's like, can you just play with me? Like, all you have to do is just turn off your phone and then they can't call you. It's like her perspective of that is so, simple. And it's funny.
Yeah. Emerson told me the other day, I've always thought Emerson has been a little like mystical being. She's a little Pisces, so take that for what it's worth if you're into that. But the other day, it was a couple weeks ago now, she said, well, you can just go out and get more money. We were talking about something about, jobs and how you get money from jobs. And she's like, you can just go out and find some more. Like, it was everywhere. But to her, like, she's like, what do you mean? Like, that's not the only way to get money. Well, she's right. There are so many other ways to get money. Like, if it was life or death and you had to come up with $1,000 by noon tomorrow, you would find a way, even if you weren't employed. So it's interesting. They're so honest, but there's something so pure about it too.
Exactly.
So we talked about how you're balancing the things. What's next? Do you think you guys will ever take the orchard full time, or are you happy to just kind of keep the jobs in this skiing together?
I mean, you and I have we've always been scheming or plotting or like planning, like, what can we do? Like, we have so many passions, we have so many ideas running through our heads. And I think that's just our mindset. Like, we want to do more. We want to impact this world in a way that, not that our jobs don't fulfill, but we just have, bigger passions. And ideally, yes, we would love tomorrow if we could make the orchard full time. And we have lots of ideas around that. It's just, figuring out the next steps to take and how that could work. And so one day, hopefully.
Yeah. James is an idea man too. I think it's
definitely, he is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely there. And I can say, being laid off, it's not my narrative that I'm going to live by, but it has been very insightful because there were so many things that I thought, oh, if I just had this, then my life would be easier. Or if I just had this, then I would feel this way. And one of the things that I was always focused on was ease. Like, how can I have more ease in my life? And I thought money equaled more ease. Well, I can tell you, there's a complete absence of money coming from my end now. And the ease has been there and it has been amazing. And it's like, just stepping out in faith that we're going to be taken care of. And it thankfully has been delivered in unexpected ways, So I think there is something to be said about, figuring out your next steps, but also stepping out in some faith and really examining like what it is you're looking for. And are there other ways to achieve that in a non-traditional, quote unquote, kind of way.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the dreaming is so fun, but it's when you get caught up in the details that it's like, never mind.
Right.
Well, I will say you guys have been really inspirational in chasing your dreams, because I remember it was 2020. And then one day you guys were like, we're buying an orchard. And I was like, what? It was just like, oh my gosh. Okay. Awesome. You're not afraid to dream. You're not afraid to go for it. And I love that.
Yeah. Now we're past the dreaming and trying to figure out how to make it every single day.
You're doing it. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. We got to come down. Of course, we had seen it before when we lived there, but and I think maybe it was just the time of my life with everything going on and like really needing a few moments of peace. But when we came to visit you last spring, I remember just like looking out over the orchard and the way the sun was coming down. It was just so peaceful. It was exactly what I needed. It was so nice. So
yeah.
Like you live in a postcard. I love that. Love that. Real quick, was there anything about becoming a mom that like kind of changed you that in a way you weren't expecting, or maybe brought something to the surface for you that you weren't expecting?
Yeah. So I've always loved kids. Like I've always been around kids, nieces, nephews. I was a nanny in college. Those kids were in our wedding. Like I've always loved kids. And I just remember thinking like, oh, when I have my own, I'm going to rock it. Like, I had all the confidence in the world, and you just don't know until you're in it. And I think it's been definitely like eye-opening these last 6 years, and that I don't have it all together. Sometimes like I always thought I would be the most caring and passionate and, would have all the best answers and address every situation in like the perfect way and all the things. And you just don't, you don't have all of the right things to say. They think of the most inopportune times to ask the hardest questions.
Yep.
And in those first couple of years, it's so like physical. They need you so much physically. And lately it's been more of like the mental, like all of the questions and being able to support her mind and growing in that way, along with having a very new baby. And being physical, like needing the physical nurturing as well. So this last year has been really tough because you're playing both parts. Like you're trying to nurture mentally, but then my kids are 6 and just turned 6 and 1. So you're trying to, nurture her, mind as well as being there physically. And it's tiring. It's exhausting. It's day in, day out, there's always a need. And I love it. I would not change anything for the world, but it is so demanding, so exhausting. You always laugh at the parents that will say like, oh, well, we would never do that, or like blah, blah, blah. And there's so many scenarios where we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, we said we'd never do this, but here we are. Yeah. And I still think we're really great parents, it's just, having, again, that grace for yourself, and that you're not going to do everything. You're not going to have all the perfect answers. You're not going to react in a great way every single time. so for me, I think it's just been like living in the moment, taking that time to be present with the kids, and not everything has to be perfect. And, she doesn't have to wear the perfect outfit. She doesn't have, she's going to want to pick out her outfit, and it's going to be weather inappropriate and whatever, you're not going to get this time back. And being able to be present in that moment is what's changed me, I feel like, the most.
It's so true. You think it's going to look a certain way, and then you get in it and you're like, oh,
right.
And you just have to like live by and honor what's going on with your little precious angel, because they're all wired so different and their needs are so different. And like you said, the things always land at like the worst times. Like, oh, your little sibling is covered in poop, and now you want to ask about higher powers, or
right.
how the earth was formed, or why are we this way? You're like, I love you so much, but can we put a pin in this? Yeah. I think that's huge.
And
yes.
Giving I always thought it had to be fair attention. Like, we talked a lot with her, like, hey, your little brother is going to need a lot of our physical attention, but what she craves is that emotional attention, and feeling like it has to be even, but it's just not going to be in certain seasons.
Yeah, it is. And you just got to roll with it, and they're all going to be okay.
Yeah.
If you care and you're trying, like, they're all going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah. Mary, this has been so good. There've been so many tasty morsels in here. I thank you so much. I know you're so busy. Job, 2 children, orchard, and let's not forget there are animals. You've got chickens. Like, you guys are not messing around with the situation. So it means a lot that you took the time today. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks again to my sweet friend Mary for joining us on this episode. In true busy motherhood fashion, we had to cut things short as she had to get back to work and I had to rush out to the bus to collect my oldest one from her half day of school. I did not get a chance to ask her on the podcast about how she makes time for herself and how she carves out that special me time throughout the week, and what it looks like for her. And she replied back, my bathtub. Mary loves a nice hot bath, and it's something that you can easily enough integrate into your day. So if that's your jam, I encourage you to add that in. Here are this episode's takeaways, and it was hard to narrow it down because the conversation was just so juicy. 1, tap into your support system early on in your pregnancy. Don't shy away from sharing your journey with your circle. You may be surprised who else is walking a similar journey. 2, don't let family planning deter you from leaving a job and finding a better position. As Mary has shown us, there are creative solutions aside from FMLA. 3, on maternity leave, set the bar low. Set small goals like emptying the dishwasher to set yourself up for small wins throughout the week. 4, adjust your mindset. We're used to being so busy, but truly resting is absolutely a win, not only on your maternity leave, but also in the life of a working mom. 5, take time to reflect on what do you really want from your life and how do you want your children to perceive you. It's so important to sit down and have those conversations deliberately with your spouse to set a vision for the life that you want to create together and for your children. Until next time, come find me on Instagram at Having a Mom Moment, or I'm dabbling on Facebook and I have a page over there under the same name, Having a Mom Moment. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. In case no one has told you today, you are amazing, you are loved, and I'm so proud of the badass that you are. Until next time, Mama. Bye.